Welcome back to another wonderful episode of Business of Cannabis, live from the Barbican here in Cannabis Europa in beautiful, incredible London. I'm your host, SKV, Shahbaaz Kara-Virani, and here we have the international human of mystery, Kate Holste. How are you, Kate?
I am great. It's a beautiful, surprisingly sunny day in London, and I'm having a good day meeting up with people today.
Kate, as we were coming on and as we were talking, you were mentioning a little bit about what you do at Boveda, and a lot of your role sounds like it's focused on the international market, which is essentially where we can focus some of our time here today.
Perfect.
Help us understand a little bit more about that role, how you got to being in this role, what your journey here was. Let's start there.
Yeah, sure. So my role is basically head of international sales. So I am on the sales team, business development and sales for Boveda's two different industries, though. So I work heavily in cannabis, but it's only about 50% of what I do because I also manage our cigar business as well. So it's been fun to watch actually over the years that the cannabis portion of that expand. Trying to think how many countries. I think we're in about 115, 120 countries overall between the industries. So
Wow.
Lots of conversations, lots of managing relationships with distributors. So we have really strong partnerships, things like that. So
I feel like that's an MBA in international relations right there, real time. So what
glad
is
you
that?
think so, because I don't have an MBA.
What is that? I believe it. I believe it. Fundamentally, that must be so challenging because you're having to manage not only sales, which is such a challenging thing, and BD, which I want to get into, but you're having to manage so many different cultures and humans and outlooks. So what does the life of Kate Holste look like on the road?
Yeah, so on the road, I actually am based at the home office in Minnesota, where Boveda is headquartered, and only spend maybe not as much time as you would think on the road. It's a lot of communication, obviously email, phone, WhatsApp on the daily. But life on the road, I try to get into markets that are kind of key or, big events at least, 4 to 6 times a year. And when I do that, I usually kind of extend and try to make the most of it. It's not a quick flight in and out. It's like coming for a few weeks and really developing and trying to spend time with our distributors. We really rely on distributors. And those, because we are a small team, we need people who are giving us the insights in any given market, kind of feeding us what we don't know or what you can't necessarily learn, in a couple days somewhere. So having those relationships and developing that, and it's a lot of just talking, talking to people honestly all day long, because sales is nothing but relationships, right?
Big time. So for our audience who doesn't know what Boveda does, give us a quick synopsis on on kind of the problem that Boveda is solving.
Yeah, so Boveda is two-way humidity control. And in that vein, there's a lot of things that can affect humidity, and the two-way is what makes our product unique, basically. So most things are one-way humidifiers where they're only giving off moisture, or people are familiar with desiccants that are only absorbing moisture. Boveda is designed to target a specific RH and either give off or absorb moisture in the environment to achieve equilibrium. So we have a variety of different humidity levels that we produce, whether it's for the cigar industry, which is usually closer to 70% humidity, and then the cannabis industry is actually, which we've had a product in since 2007, I think is when that was developed, is closer to 60% humidity.
If ever you thought your life or job was hard, try having your mission be to achieve equilibrium, right? Like that's challenging, but awesome. And, I remember seeing the Boveda packs in a variety of different cannabis packaging for the last few years. So kudos to you and the team for just building that and being such a key cog of at least what I've seen as a consumer of the cannabis industry. So we're obviously in London right now. The European market seems to be booming. What are some of your perspectives on this market as a whole, and what have you taken away from the show so far?
Yeah, sure. So our team has been in the industry and attending shows in various markets really since 2015 probably. So we've seen a lot of changes, and we've seen a lot of how different markets operate, and there is a lot of uniqueness obviously in the States based on the different legalization models, but that's kind of the same here as well. There's such a variety. and kind of every country is at a different place. And I think what's challenging, but why it's really helpful to come to events like this is because there's so much buzz going around and you can read headlines all day long. But these events are really good for understanding what's actually happening and what's maybe just hearsay. And the markets, it's been really fun for us to see. I think these events continue to grow every year. For sure, and it's fun to see some new faces in the game as well.
My next question is naturally going to be, so what's actually happening?
Well, what's actually happening is finally some movement. I think for the past couple of years, you've been hearing, Germany's thinking this. France is maybe considering medical cannabis, and so these pilot
I love
programs.
That hearsay. I'm a hearsay consumer.
Yeah,
sure.
So a lot of that, and it gets people excited, and it might be buzzy, but things are actually happening here now. And I think with Germany's recent shift, it's been huge for our business, because while we do work with commercial producers, we still also target home growers, and we basically want to be anywhere that there's cannabis flower to keep it fresh, so someone's consumption experience is the best it can be, whether it's for medicinal use or for just enjoyment. But I think what's happening in Germany is really going to set the tone for other countries, and it's going to be interesting to see if they follow that same kind of model of decriminalization and allowing people to consume and the club model, or if people are going to follow Canadian models or things like that. So I think it's too soon to tell, but I'm at least excited that there's momentum, and I think the ripple effect is going to be big.
So I know you said you're not on the road as much as maybe I would think, but you're still on the road, and you're still having to build these relationships, and then go back and make something happen with these relationships. So in your experience as a sales leader, especially working across so many geographic locations, what kind of advice can you offer for our listeners on building relationships quickly and building trust quickly?
I think one of the biggest thing is building your network in general. And it doesn't necessarily have to be someone that might potentially be a customer, just getting to know as many people in the industry. You can see kind of who's connected to who, and how people operate in, maybe not directly with you, but you can hear stories about how they are in business relationships other ways. But yeah, I think kind of just authenticity of relationship and being really honest. Don't promise things that you're not going to deliver on. I think for me, just a big thing is be kind to everyone, even if I maybe have a different perspective from them on a topic, or even a competitor. I think there's so much room for everyone in this industry if it grows as we think it's going to. So to me, it's building a solid network. So when I go to a new country for the first time, chances are I know someone who knows someone who knows someone who can make getting connected to the local community as easy as possible, and then be willing to do that for others as well. I think that's the biggest thing. And I think with relationships too, continuity of communication. You can't just buzz in, once and expect something to grow. You really have to stay in touch. In the meantime, get to know people, get to know their, what's going on in their life outside of work as well. It's kind of obvious stuff, but it's hard to do.
Yeah. It's hard to,
but it makes it fun too.
Exactly. So, just to sum what I heard is really around building that ecosystem of your network so that you can continue to drive
completely
referrals, and making sure that you're super curious and actually curious for the right reasons without actually getting something in return.
Completely.
It sounds like, and that's sage advice, because it's one thing to be at the events, but it's another thing completely to actually walk away from events with something tangible. And oftentimes, if you can meet 3, 4, 5 people and walk away with those relationships, good relationships, real relationships, versus just trying to meet 100 people one time and not necessarily know much, right?
Completely.
Okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit about, you've done a lot of traveling. Are there any mistakes that you've made on the road that, as a road warrior and as someone who's facing the place, that, as we look at, if anyone in our audience is, head of sales, revenue leaders, which many are, CROs, so on and so forth. I am myself, right, a revenue leader. And so what are some, things to avoid or some mistakes that maybe you've made in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of an obvious one to me is just like do a little research on the culture and how people are. I read a book, I can't even remember the name of it, but it was just about communication styles of people in different parts of the world. So kind of go in knowing what to expect and that what you're used to from, the home office or from the people you know personally, that the business communication might be different. And there's a lot of stuff. I mean, the internet is full of information now. Like, you can do a little research, you can read a book just to have a sense of the type of people that you're going to be working with. Another one that kind of, it's a lighthearted one, but it stands out to me as a mistake that we made as a company, and it was a mistake and a win together. The first time we wanted to that we wanted to do Cannabis. We knew it was a big, important show in the international scene. And we decided to, instead of going all in on the first event, we decided to do a smaller scale Cannabis in Madrid just to kind of test the waters. And we showed up, more professionally dressed than we probably needed to be. We didn't have anyone who spoke Spanish, on our team. So with, the little Spanish that I know from, un poquito, but we struggled through a little bit, and that was an obvious one. Just, have people from the local community helping and breaking down communication and doing that research in advance. I'll tell you, we were so much more ready for the big event at Cannabis by doing a little test the waters first. So.
As a sales leader, you got to continue to be a scientist, and you got to continue to test hypotheses and learn and not be afraid to make mistakes. So kudos to the team. Opportunity cost as a sales leader, right, is something, there's a zillion shows. And I didn't even realize that 50% of your role is also in, cigar world, right? A little bit more mature, but still lots of dollars, right? And lots of, that's a massive industry. Cannabis is going to get there as well, but opportunity cost, right, is a big thing as a sales leader. So how do you make decisions on where to go, especially because all these shows seem to be happening at the same time?
Right. Trust me, when those dates get launched, I just cross my fingers that it'll work how I want. But I think one thing is realizing that you can't be everywhere. I mean, that's first step. It's expensive, and protecting your own self and your time is important. So I missed a really big show last week, and that was a bummer, but recognizing that it's okay, there's other opportunities, so have grace. But I think the biggest thing is knowing, I try to be really aware of where our revenue is coming from in a given place and where you see trends. So if you see a little uptick, maybe follow those cues and know where that might be a a growing market. I still like to spread, be broad, because you never know. There's so much going on in different places. But I think following the numbers always helps to know where to focus. I'm trying to think if there's anything specific. And then there's also just following the conferences that draw good people that you can expect. Sometimes taking a new show can be risky, but usually I think a big piece of it is also just gut. I think intuition is really important in sales because there's so much information in the world, and you sometimes have to just say, my feeling is going here. And I thought that about Australia a couple of years ago, and I said, there's an event coming up in 3 weeks. I put together a quick Australia trip, and it was great for our business. We have a great, partners there. We're doing great business. We're in a lot of packaging there. And that would have been, one whole year later. If I had gone to the show next year, I would have missed out on, great relationship building and opportunities. So
wonderful, though, that you can put together a quick Australia trip. I don't know if that's an oxymoron or not, coming from Minneapolis, but obviously, the executive team is aligned and sees the opportunity, but these trips aren't just for naught. You're coming back with pipeline, you're coming back with revenue, you're making these business cases, which is so important, and you're justifying these trips. So where's the next place that we're going, Kate?
Yeah, so physically, the next person I'm going is going to be back to Germany.
Okay.
In the fall, and that is a unique show because it's going to be combining cigars and cannabis at one event in Dortmund. So I'm going to be very busy. Yeah, back and forth between the two expo halls probably. So that's a big focus of ours right now. I know everyone's saying it, but the numbers don't lie, and there's a lot of opportunity. And I think what's unique about that too is we planted the seeds there years ago. And it took a while. And I think in cannabis, sometimes you have to, when you're looking for ROI, you have to look back a couple of years sometimes, and you have to play the long game. But, we did work for years, and now it's starting to come to fruition, and we want to keep on the gas.
I heard from that delayed gratification is the piece. And I think we live in a world today where everyone needs instant gratification. We make decisions off 15-second reels or, hearsay off headlines that you really got to put in the work beforehand and drive the persistence and the follow-up nature of it. So where can people connect with you? Where can people find you? I'm sure they're going to have lots of questions, especially as an international, sales leader. LinkedIn. Yeah, LinkedIn. My name is Kate Holste. You can find me there. I think Instagram, Boveda Kate. You can email me. I can share contact with you guys. However. Awesome. Cool. Reach out to Boveda, directly. That's great too. It'll find me. Perfect. Thank you for the time. Really, really appreciate you. Yeah, likewise. Cheers. Thanks for having me.